Hello again. Welcome to SNL Sucks, the constructive criticism podcast of Saturday Night Live. I'm Fred Garvin, and I'm a sketch writer, performer for many years, and I'm here to critique Saturday Night Live. This would be Season 41, Episode 14, hosted by Jonah Hill, who's not going to like me anymore. Anyway, we opened with the political sketch, of course. Everything Trump, 24 hours. Daryl Hammond's Trump is not good. He's doing an imitation of him doing an imitation of Trump. He doesn't have the cadence of Trump. He doesn't have the short sentences. He just keeps going back to what he thinks Trump sounds like. But then again, so did Dana Carvey and George Bush and Chevy Chase and Gerald Ford. All that. Kate McKinnon did a good Hillary. It's like she looks like Tina Fey doing Sarah Palin compared to Daryl Hammond. And even when there was a protester disagreeing with him, he just said, I'm sorry, what did he say? Get him out. There was no acting. There was no pauses. You're just doing lines. And this whole thing was 7 minutes. It had Ted Cruz, Mitt Romney, which was actually kind of funny, his lines. But it's just kind of 7 minutes of imitations of politicians at great varying degrees with mediocre writing. Okay, I just watched the opening monologue by Jonah. There was nothing here. They didn't come up with any kind of a unique concept, really. Just a little bit of a argument with a cast member. Then Future came out, the musical guest, and he weaseled his way into singing with Future. It's like he went to the writers' meeting and said, hey, let's write something where I can sing with the musical guest, who I'm a fan of. And I sense that happens a lot, where somebody is a guest star and they have an idea, and I think they kind of feel like they have to give in. I think that happens a lot. I think it happened here. And up next was a pre-tape Trump commercial, where it is revealed later that the supporters of Trump are white supremacists and racists. And I think it was great. Of course, I'm not a Trump fan, so I think the other bunch of people who support Trump probably would not have enjoyed it as much. But even if they didn't, it was still a good premise, showing people that they support Trump, and then they would pan out and see that they were burning flags, ironing a KKK uniform, had a swastika on their arm. Pretty good concept. It was short, it was good, and maybe they should just pre-tape the whole show. There's an idea.
I feel happy!
Up next was a Fond du Lac, Wisconsin news show, local news show. Boy. This was terrible. And here's why. It was just a news show with different clips of news, cutting away to people to do weather, cutting away to other people. And it fell apart right away because the accents, it's like they decided like 2 hours before the show to do this sketch, and nobody had time to even listen to anyone from Wisconsin, which is, I mean, everybody could do British, And these are actors; they should be able to do anything. But boy, they were all over the place. Not even close. And they were all off in different ways. And bad. And people just doing accents is not a sketch. That's not a sketch. This show really, this Fond du Lac show really did nothing. There was nothing to it.
This is a complete waste of time.
Okay, next up was a pre-tape about a guy who was being driven home by his friends after a wrestling meet where he pinned the top star. Good setup. It was a pre-tape, of course, so people weren't staring at cue cards, and they were actually given time to act. Then he got home, and then he found out on the news that it was he was allowed to get pinned because he was the loser in an act of charity, which was actually a very funny concept that he would see that on the news. And they exaggerated it, which was good. They had interviews with the kids who just dropped him off, who were pretending to be supportive, and his friends, and they basically called him a loser. And then they were talking with the janitor about him, which was kind of funny. The other funny thing, they added a little thing that it was the top story, even though there was a murder next door done by a famous celebrity, which was pretty. That was a nice little touch that it wasn't the top story. So I liked this. It could have been maybe 10 seconds shorter, but I always say that. And I always say that maybe the whole show should be pre-taped. Because pre-tapes are way better than the live stuff.
I feel happy.
Okay, up next was a auction, fundraising for a school's carnival. And they were auctioning off like Spanish lessons and a performance by a band of some of the students. And good concept. And the writing wasn't bad either. What really made this suck was Jonah Hill. He is terrible. He was just yelling. He was supposed to be a rich Arab. He had sunglasses and the thing on his head, and he was just doing a regular voice. There was no accent. There was nothing. He was just a fat kid with a fake mustache and sunglasses. And it would have been worse if he didn't have sunglasses, because we would have seen him reading cue cards. This was a sketch that definitely suffered from a bad performance. And I think everyone else was good. But I think they gave Jonah too much heavy lifting. Either that or he was just really high or something.
This is a complete waste of time.
Okay, up next was Weekend Update. And I say the same thing every week. Jokes were good. A lot of OJ, election, some good stuff. So I will focus on the special guests. Up was, first one was the girl at a party that you regret talking to, Cecily, and talking nonsense and mispronouncing words and non-sequential thinking is generally pretty funny. This maybe went on a little long. It's a decent character. It was alright. Second was a on-location interview with the very old woman celebrating her birthday, and she was pretty non-responsive. Not even a good imitation of an old woman. And there wasn't a lot there. And I truly believe that as improv actors that they are, I think you could have just went out and said, I don't know, make something up. We don't have anything written for you. Which may be one of the few times I will say that something improvised could have been better than something pre-written. The third guest was Michael Che talking about... No, not Michael Che, sorry. Farrow talking about the meeting that all the black comedians have. And it was the only reason it was funny because he does really, really good imitations. Other than that, it's kind of a story. It was alright. That was good. And that was the news. Up next was the murder mystery sketch. I really got excited at the beginning of this because it was a real nice, classic sketch premise where there's been a murder and the investigator comes in, and, you know, Python's done it a lot, or at least once, I should say. The one where they started arguing about the train schedules, that was good. This was decent. They talked about... They got off on the tangent. Instead of talking about the bus schedules, they were talking about one of the suspects' bowel movements and how bad it was. So they got off track, which was kind of funny. Everyone had a good character. Oh, except for Jonah. Jonah was just reading cue cards and not really doing much more. He was given too big of a role. I think Keenan could have switched with him and would have done a better job. Actually, anyone could have switched with him and done a better job. I could see where if you have an athlete or maybe a politician, you want to hide them in a sketch and just kind of make them participate, but don't put them in a really big role. And they put Jonah in a really big role, but he's an actor, so he should have been able to handle it. Not only that, he's a comedy actor, so I have no idea. No idea. I'm sure Steve Martin would have done something funny, or Neil Patrick Harris would have had a character. Anyone. But Jonah just had nothing. And actually that's as much a fault of directing as Jonah's. They should have directed him better. Or directed him. Maybe he didn't get any direction. I don't know what goes on over there. Up next was the local Southern Cal news show. Oh, no, it was Fond du Lac. No, wait a minute. Yeah, this was the second local news show sketch on the show. That's like 30% of the show. Maybe 40. I'm not really good at math. So this was kind of Southern California stoner guys, and they were covering a breaking story about a woman who was getting breast reduction surgery because of her back, and they were all mourning her big fatties. This was not good. I mean, I think they did a good job acting kind of high, and Jonah wasn't as terrible in this. Maybe because he was allowed to look at a teleprompter where the camera was, so it wasn't so obvious he was looking off to read a cue card. I don't know what the purpose was. Meh. It seemed weird that they would have two of these. Why when they save one for next week? Maybe Jonah wrote them both. I don't know. And the last sketch never disappoints to be an absolute mess. Jonah was a kind of a caterer for a business meeting, and he was on the phone talking with his company. Just kept saying how the food was killing it in a very exaggerated, odd way. It was just a bad sketch. And the last line was Jonah trying the food after the rest of them decided to get pizza and leaving, and he like spit it out, and he was looking right at a cue card, and he had to scream something, yell something, and I didn't even understand what he was saying. So here's where you gotta at least memorize your last line. It's only a line, and it's got to be done right, and it shouldn't be done looking at a cue card reading. But that's just me. So that was the show. Not good. Pre-tape was good. The 2 pre-tapes were good. And that's about it. If you want to see or hear more reviews, SNLsucks.com. I'm Fred Garvin. Keep it funny.
You're eating like hogs in a trough full of hog slop. Mensch, mensch, mensch. She didn't even come up for air. She's deep throating this broccoli, Mike. What do you mean you're still getting robbed? Fight back, Mike.